So, hey guys, it's Kelly at Women for One, and today I am just so over the top excited to speak with such an incredibly powerful woman, Gabby Bernstein. And this woman pretty much has done everything um, before 40 in a lot of ways. She's an author and she's a teacher, and she's been named a new thought leader by Oprah Super Soul Sunday, which I love because I've loved Oprah for 25 years, and anybody she really puts out there, I look into. I could talk about Gabby forever, and if you haven't seen Gabby or heard of her, please Google her, look her up, um, go into who she is, read her book. She's an author of 5 books, a New York Times bestselling author. And today I really want to talk about her new book, The Universe Has Your Back: Transform Fear to Faith, which I'm really excited to speak about. But first, I want to just talk a little bit about how I got to know Gabby before we bring her on. I actually, her book was given to me by a friend, Spirit Junkie, and I was intrigued. Just love that term. And it's a memoir of her life up to that point. And I was sitting in Bali on the Indian Ocean reading Spirit Junkie. And every time I see Gabby's face now, which is absolutely gorgeous inside and out, I think of the Indian Ocean in Bali and the revelations that I had when I was reading her memoir. So I wanted to introduce you, Gabby, to our community, and I want to thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. That was such a nice intro. I'm so glad that I remind you of Bali. That's so nice.
I really appreciate you being here. So,
Yeah.
today I really want to talk about your book. I love your book. I've bookmarked it. I've got every other page put down, torn down, like and highlighted, and I just I love it because it's one of those books that you can pick up and read all at once, or if you're having an issue in your life, you can pick it up, open it up, and ask the universe for some support. So, um, can you talk to me first and all of us about the story about when you decided to write this book and how that came about and the evolution of it?
Yeah, in the beginning of the book, I talk about how around the time that I was writing the book, I had a meltdown on a yoga mat and realized and learned that this was my resistance to love. That this sort of physical and emotional meltdown I was having was really just my resistance to my connection to the universe. And so I wrote this book at one of the most difficult times in my life. And at the time, I didn't realize why I was having such a hard time, but it was one thing after the next. And I was continuously challenged with the content that I was writing about. I was challenged to have to witness my discomfort and come back with a solution. So had to keep writing and writing and writing. And in the process of writing, I found a lot of healing and a lot of almost resurrection in my mind and my thinking, because I put myself through the processes and the practices and the meditations and the prayers all throughout the book as a result of writing them for the reader, but at the same time, really writing it for myself. So I like to share that because I think that when you write a book, when you're going through what you're writing about, it's like almost when you write it because you need it.
Hmm.
There's something very authentic that comes through, and I think that a lot of my readers are beginning to feel that and have shared that with me since the launch of the book.
I completely agree. This book really moved me for many reasons. And I love the prayers that you channel in this book and the themes of the book in general. It's like you're an incredible prayer writer. Where did that come from?
It's funny that you say that because I have been joking lately, but maybe it's not a joke, that I kind of, love this sort of new title of prayer giver. And I don't know, I really let myself channel what comes through, and all of the words in that book have been channeled. And it's been a beautiful opportunity to just step back and allow. And that process of really allowing and letting spirit right through me was not only a gift of writing this book, but it's also a message and a lesson in the book, which is really being an instrument for love and learning how to be a vessel to let that message come through you.
Mm, I love that. The the word surrender in this book is huge for me because I'm 48 years old. when I was 19, I wrote to my guru at that time, asking her, what does the word surrender mean? Because I feel like I've been a seeker like you my whole life. And I just love that you said unlearning fear and remembering love. That's what surrender is to you, unlearning fear and remembering love. So, how do you get out of your own way, and how do you teach us in this book with the tools and the prayers and the practices to do that?
So there's actually a chapter in the book. First of all, the entire book is about unlearning that fear and remembering love, and that's pretty much the core through line of all of the books that I write and the lessons that I write and the talks that I give. And through the journey of going through these practices, what happens is that we start to lean into a new way of perceiving the world. And being on a spiritual path really simply is just being on the journey of unlearning the fear that we chose to believe in and remembering the love that we are. And that's what every single lesson in this book embodies. And the lessons in the book are really just aligned to help you and the reader just to surrender into these practices even more and more, so that the practice of leaning towards love becomes second nature. And even in the midst of uncomfortable situations or obstacles, you can choose to find the serenity.
Oh, that's great. So with this book, I know you have spoken about this in your masterclass that you've put out there. You've talked about the trauma that you've uncovered by writing this book for yourself, and for your community as well. And I just want you to know that was huge for me. The Spirit Junkie class on healing trauma really hit my heart, because I am an incest survivor of my father sexually abusing me when I was 4.
Mm-hmm.
Did not
Mm-hmm.
remember till I was 33, had many
Mm-hmm.
clues.
Mm-hmm.
He had died when I was 17, so I had to figure it out on my own. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember the moment that I remembered. I look back, it was 14 years ago. And I'm still healing that, Gabby.
Oh God, don't tell me that.
Sorry. It's a journey, right? I mean, and I love how you dive in and say, I'm diving in, like I am healing this trauma. So could we talk about, how we're connected that way? Can you talk about your trauma that you discovered?
Yeah, I mean it's a similar story of just remembering in a doctor's office and in a therapy session, and it's the most terrifying moment of your life. But it was a month after, no, weeks after I submitted the book. And so then I had to go through this process of editing the book in the midst of this remembrance. And the interesting thing that happened for me was that the only thing I had to do in that 2 month period was edit the book. And as God would have it, I didn't have any travel, I didn't have anywhere to go. And it was very, very big blessing. And through the journey of rereading the book and editing the book, I was on this beautiful path of healing myself and remembering what was real to me. So once again, the book was healing me. And so it was an interesting opportunity to apply the principles on the most deep level, and also to understand, like you said, just sort of all the reasons that I had disconnected, and all the signs, right? I had been
Mm-hmm.
I've been sober for 11 years, so I was, why did I become a drug addict? Why was I a workaholic? Why was I, because addiction stems from trauma, and what are we running from? And there comes a place when we feel safe enough to slow down enough to remember. And in that remembrance, we are terrified, but we also have an opportunity to go much deeper in our life and in our spiritual practice.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you say that it's still 14 years now, and you're still that makes me nervous.
Well, I'm healing many layers, and just your sharing and your powerful sharing. You're such an incredible orator. Like when you get up and speak, and you channel so purely. When you said, I have the gratitude for finally knowing, like finally getting real, like owning your story and owning what you wrote. You said this, owning what it means to truly expose my wounds, and knowing I was not crazy, but that I was traumatized. I literally cried in my bed for 20 minutes after you said that, Gabby,
Yeah. Yeah.
because I think people just saying it, and Women for One, just so you know, is about sharing your story. We have women from over 50 countries, over 500 women and men that have shared their stories courageously so that they can release it and understand it from a higher consciousness, which you talk about in all your books, right? Get some consciousness on why this story has happened. and move forward to live the life on their own terms. So that's kind of where we are. And I wanted to ask you, in the book, you talk a lot about your story, and you give examples of different teachings from your own stories and from other women and men in their stories. So can you share one of those with us, with our community?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's so many stories that come through for me in this book and in the training and in the teaching. And one in particular, I think, would be the message of obstacles or detours in the right direction. And when I wrote that in the book, there was a great story of how it almost sounds sort of like a seemingly insignificant story, but it turned out to be very meaningful in the end. But it's a story of getting stuck in an elevator with my husband. And at the time, we'd been going through a lot of uncomfortable stuff in our relationship, and dealing with changes that were going on, and petty arguments and silliness and littleness. And he and I got stuck in this elevator with this beautiful 45 minutes of our life to just be stripped away of all the pretenses and remember what was real. And I was guided through my prayer to just give him love and attention and rub his back and tickle his neck and give him all the things that he really wanted. And because he's very claustrophobic, and here we were stuck in an elevator. So in giving him all this love and attention and giving him this this connection, he calmed down in that 45 minutes in the elevator. And when we got out of the elevator, it was 111, which to us is like a sign that when we see one in sequence, that's a sign to us that we're being guided and the universe has our back. And so in this instance with him, what it reminds me of was that this obstacle was a detour in the right direction, because taking away all of the worldly pretenses and all the things that we were hung up about and removing it all for 45 minutes gave me this opportunity to remember what was real and remember our closer connection and remember that being in that state of love was all that really mattered. And so I think my way back into that elevator when there's petty arguments or silliness going on, and I remember what is real. So this was a sort of simple, silly story, but it's an example of how we can choose to perceive our obstacles as opportunities and detours in the right direction. And throughout the book, I share a lot of these stories. That was a very sort of a little story along the way, but there's many in there that are very deep and in some cases shameful, and in some cases were very difficult for me to share. And so that was just one example of the stories that we have to offer. But I feel that through those stories, people can recognize themselves, and that's where healing can also begin, regardless of the lessons or the exercises or the prayers.
Isn't that true? And I love the story about your husband, because it made you so relatable, because my husband bugs the shit out of me sometimes, and I adore him, and he's my partner for life, right? But then there was that other story about the woman at the party that bugged you, and I thought, oh my God, thank you for being honest, because that happens to me. I'm sitting there, and someone just bugs me. It just irritates me. And I think one of the greatest things we could do is go into self-reflection and realize that's a reflection of our own judgment. And I really appreciate that story in there. So that was one of my favorites.
Yeah. I love that story too. I mean, people have to I'm not going to give them all away. People have to go get the book.
Yeah. So, but what I love is that, women need to support women. And that's what we're doing. We're creating this tribe at Women for One. So your book, Universe Has Your Back, Transform Fear into Faith. You're on a book tour right now. This interview will go out during your book tour. So can you tell us where you're going to be? I think you're in Boca tomorrow.
I'm in Boca tomorrow, and I'm in Fort Lauderdale on Saturday, and then I'm going to be in Vancouver next Friday.
On the October 21st. You're in Vancouver.
That's right.
That's awesome. I'm in Seattle, so.
Oh, you should come.
I know. I'd love to get up there and see you.
I'll give you a ticket. I'd love to meet you.
I would love to meet you too. And
hop over. I know you have 6 children, so I don't know how quickly you're getting over here.
Well, I have 3 of my own and 3 stepkids. I successfully, whatever successful means, tried to blend a family, and they're all teenagers and young adults now. So.
Okay, great. So you're a little off the hook. Okay, that's good.
I'm a little better. It's more emotional support now.
Yeah, right? Oh my God.
Thank you, Gabby, so much. And everyone, please go get this book. This Universe Has Your Back. It's not only a prayer book, but it's full of tools, practical exercises, and Gabby's incredibly vulnerable story. So thank you again for being here, and we really appreciate you talking to us.
Thanks, Kelly.
All right. Bye, everyone.